afternoon, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Today on Newsfeed at noon, President Bongbong Marcos appoints a new chief of embattled state insurer PhilHealth. Trade war on pause as U.S. President Donald Trump postpones tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Anthony Davis breaks his silence on the Lakers' shocking trade that sent him to the Dallas Mavericks. And Meteor Garden stars Jerry Yan and Ken Chu mourn the sudden death of Barbie Hsu. Thanks for joining us. Protesters gather in Manila to call for greater transparency in public health funding. This comes as the Supreme Court is set to hear oral arguments on petitions challenging the allegedly anomalous transfer of PhilHealth funds to the National Treasury. Hannah T. joins us live from Manila. Hannah, how's the situation there?
Even before today's oral arguments, protesters have already gathered outside the Supreme Court, not with loud chants, but through a silent demonstration. This morning, members of Bayan Muna stood in front of the Supreme Court holding signs demanding that public funds be used to increase PhilHealth benefits instead of being transferred to the National Treasury. The protesters remained silent, but their message was clear. The government shouldn't be taking funds away from an agency that Filipinos rely on for healthcare. Their protest is directly linked to today's oral arguments. It was Bayan Muna along with Wansang Bayan and Senator Coco Pimentel who filed a petition before the Supreme Court last year challenging the Finance Department's order to transfer 89.9 billion in unspent PhilHealth funds to the National Treasury. Petitioners earlier argued that this move violates PhilHealth's fiscal autonomy, as the law states that the corporation's funds must be used exclusively for health insurance benefits. They also warned that this transfer could strain the agency's operations, affecting its ability to pay hospitals and provide services to members. In response to the petition, the Supreme Court issued a temporary restraining order in October, preventing the government from transferring the remaining 29.9 billion to the Treasury. Records show that 60 billion had already been transferred before the TRO was issued. The court's final decision will determine whether that transfer was legal and if the remaining funds should be protected. The government defends the move, stating that the 89.9 billion was excess funds and that under fiscal rules, unspent public funds must be returned to the National Treasury. Officials say this does not affect PhilHealth's operations, but documents from PhilHealth show that the state insurer still owes private hospitals billions in unpaid claims. Despite these financial struggles, there has been no commitment from the government to replenish PhilHealth's funds. Protesters argue that instead of removing funds from the agency, the government should be finding ways to strengthen the country's health insurance system. Mai?
Hannah, there's a new group that just joined the protest. Can you tell us about them and others possibly joining today?
Right behind me, there are actually other groups aside from Bayan Muna who is protesting ahead of the 2 p.m. oral argument at the Supreme Court. Behind me is the All-UP Academic Employees Union and Alliance of Health Workers and also members of Health Alliance for Democracy. They call on the Supreme Court to declare the transfer of PhilHealth excess funds as illegal and permanently disallow the transfer. Back to you, Mai.
Thank you, Hannah T. reporting to us live there from Manila. Oral arguments at 2 p.m. Keep us posted. Amid the issues surrounding PhilHealth, the state insurer gets a new president and CEO. Dr. Edwin Mercado replaces Emmanuel Ledesma Jr. and took his oath before President Bongbong Marcos this morning. Mercado is a U.S.-trained orthopedic surgeon with 35 years of experience in hospital management. Public trust enjoyed by President Marcos and Vice President Sara continues to decline. That's according to the latest survey by the SWS in partnership with the Stratbase Group. It shows Marcos's trust rating was down to 50% last month from 64% in July 2024, 57% in September, and 54% in December. As for the vice president, she got a rating of 49% from 52% in December. The survey was conducted from January 17 to 20. Donald Trump's trade war on pause. His tariffs on Canadian imports postponed for at least 30 days in return for concessions on border and crime enforcement. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau said Canada has committed to creating the post of a special czar to combat the smuggling of fentanyl and ensure monitoring of their border with the U.S. Trump had threatened to impose tariffs on Canadian imports by February 4th unless Ottawa cracked down on drug smuggling and the flow of illegal migrants. As for Trump, he says he's very pleased with the initial outcome of his negotiations with Canada, but he notes it's not yet certain if a final economic deal will be reached. U.S. President Trump also postponed new tariffs on Mexico for a month. This after Mexico agreed to reinforce its northern border by sending 10,000 National Guard members. The agreement also includes a U.S. commitment to prevent trafficking of high-powered weapons to Mexico. Trump and Mexican President Claudia Sheinbaum spoke by phone hours before the new tariffs were set to take effect.
Pues que habíamos estado trabajando juntos en migración.
It was a good conversation, with a framework of respect. That is the news we have for you. He asked me how long I wanted to pause tariffs. I said forever. He told me, how much time? I told him a month. I'm sure that during this month we'll be able to deliver good results for his people and the people of Mexico. I told him that we've been working together on migration, and that we've had good results. We always work respecting and protecting human rights. We talked on our common interest in reducing fentanyl trafficking from Mexico to the United States. And other drugs as well, not just fentanyl.
Trump now says the U.S. and Mexico will use the month-long suspension to engage in further talks.
President Sheinbaum is a woman. I like her very much. We've had good relationships, but we have to stop fentanyl from coming in, whether I like somebody or not, and we have to stop the illegal aliens from coming in. I think we've lost 200,000 people on average a year for many years, much higher than the 100,000. Could be even closer to 300,000. And they've agreed to put in 10,000 soldiers permanently, like forever, 10,000 soldiers at their side of the border and stop fentanyl and illegal aliens from coming into our country. They have a big incentive to do. Other than that, we've agreed to talk and consider various other things. We haven't agreed on tariffs yet.
Senate Democrats sounding the alarm over billionaire Elon Musk getting access to the U.S. Treasury Department's payment system. Musk chairs the newly created Department of Government Efficiency under Trump 2.0. The payment system is used to dole out trillions of dollars in federal funds.
Donald Trump basically handed Doge the Social Security data of virtually every American citizen. Donald Trump gave Doge access to America's personal tax refund data. He gave Doge access to people's Medicare and Medicaid benefits, disability payment data, veteran benefit data. Worst of all, we don't know what Doge intends to do with this information. If you want to know how an unelected shadow government operates, look no further than Doge. Let's be very clear. Doge is not a real government agency. It has no authority to make spending decisions. It has no authority to shut programs down or ignore federal law. To give Doge a chokehold on Treasury payments is outlandishly dangerous. It's like putting a tiger into a petting zoo and then hoping for the best. It's impossible to overstate that this is playing with fire.
Trump quickly defending Musk, whom he has tasked to identify fraud and waste in the government.
Elon can't do and won't do anything without our approval, and we'll give him the approval where appropriate. Where not appropriate, we won't. We're trying to shrink government. and he can probably shrink it as well as anybody else, if not better. Where we think there's a conflict or there's a problem, we won't let him go near it.
Britain's Princess of Wales shares a new photo and a powerful message to mark World Cancer Day. On Instagram, Kate published a photo taken by his 6-year-old son, Prince Louis, along with a message, "Don't forget to nurture all that which lies beyond the disease." Kate was mostly out of the public eye last year after revealing she was undergoing treatment for cancer. She completed chemotherapy in September, and just last month, Kate announced that she is already in remission. Turning now to the legal battle between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. Their lawyers warned against publicly discussing their competing lawsuits. Lively's lawyer earlier complained Baldoni's camp violated professional ethics rules for lawyers by accusing the actress of bullying. In turn, Baldoni's lawyers said the comments from Lively's camp to People magazine and in a podcast completely devastated the actor. A U.S. judge now says out-of-court statements could affect the outcome of the case, and they could sanction lawyers for violations.
And how's Justin feeling right now? What do you hope to accomplish this year?
You know what? He's feeling like you would feel. If you were wrongfully accused of something, you'd feel pretty devastated. And he's looking for justice. And he's a great man and an honest, really caring person. Thanks for your time.
Let's hope that, Justin gets some justice today.
Say that again. What are you hoping for?
Justin gets some justice.
In December, Lively filed a legal complaint against Baldoni, accusing him of sexual harassment during filming of It Ends With Us. She also accused his camp of starting a smear campaign against her. Baldoni has denied her claims and, in response, sued her on various grounds, including defamation. We're taking a break. Up ahead, a proposed 200 peso daily wage hike for private workers advances in the House of Representatives. That and more when Newsfeed at Noon returns. You're back on Newsfeed at Noon. A proposed 200 peso daily wage hike for private workers advances in the House of Representatives. The chamber has approved House Bill 11376 on second reading. The measure provides that the daily rate of all minimum wage workers in the private sector shall be increased by 200 pesos a day, regardless of employment status. Last week, President Bongbong Marcos said the proposal needs further study, particularly on how it could affect micro, small, and medium enterprises, or MSMEs. For more on this wage hike proposal, we're joined by the Executive Director of the National Wages and Productivity Commission, Maria Crisel Darcy. Good afternoon, Ms. Chris. Welcome to the program.
Hi, good afternoon, Mai, and to your followers.
Now, your reaction to President Marcos's statement that this needs further study due to its potential impacts on businesses.
Yes, we stand with the call of the President to study the proposal, and we are ready to provide the necessary technical inputs to the Congress, and we have been firm in our commitment to increase the workers' take-home pay. However, it's important that we make a delicate balance should the proposal pushed through, the intention is really to um, ensure that the criteria for minimum wage determination set under RA 6727 is being followed, and that we reiterate that any proposal to impose a wage increase must be carefully reviewed
Yes.
and must be weighed equally with the workers' rights and welfare, together with the capacity of the employers to pay, and more importantly, the overall socioeconomic development in the country.
Yes. So what criteria specifically is your agency under the DOLE looking at in deciding when to increase wages? Many are saying this is long overdue.
Yeah, the criteria is laid down in RA 6727, and there are 10 criteria, so which we grouped into the following broad categories. First is the need of workers and their families, and that includes the demand for living wages, the wage adjustments as against the consumer price index, and the cost of living in the country. The second major category is the capacity of employers to pay, which takes into consideration the fair return on the capital invested and the capacity to pay of employers and the prevailing wages in the country. And then lastly, the broad category on requirements of economic development and social development. We look at the improvements in the standard of living, the aim to induce investments in the countryside, and the effects of employment generation, and the effects of it on employment generation and family income.
Yeah, so let's discuss the bill further, specifically the provision which provides that small enterprises may avail of incentives from the DOLE to help them comply with a wage hike. How does your agency or DOLE plan to assist MSMEs?
Well, at this point, the MSMEs is already being assisted by the Department of Labor and Employment. And in fact, we have transitioned our social protection strategy from just providing incentives or aiding enterprises on productivity through capacity building and resource augmentation. So the shift essentially is from just giving money in the form of tupad to our vulnerable workers. The shift is towards bolstering the sustainability and competitiveness of our MSMEs, with condition that employment preservation is an integral component of the assistance being provided to MSMEs. We have what we call the Adjustment Measures Program that the department is implementing. And the aim is really to support micro enterprises in enhancing sustainability by providing financial support, specifically to productivity improvement, to skills enhancement and digitalization, which emphasizes a proactive measure rather than offering incentives to address the employer's challenges to meet the minimum wage, which is, we think, is very short-lived.
Yes, I know there are many programs of the DOLE that are already being implemented and helping MSMEs. Now, let's discuss this wage hike proposal. If passed, how will the wage hike be implemented?
We don't exactly know at this time the content of the proposal, the proposed bill on how the DOLE should implement it. I'm pretty sure that an implementing rules and regulation will be issued if the bill is passed, and the Department of Labor and Employment stands ready to come up with an implementing rules and regulations on it.
All right, thank you for joining us today, Ms. Maria Griselda C.
Okay, thank you also, and goodbye.
That's the Executive Director of the National Wages and Productivity Commission. Now, the government reaffirms its commitment to fostering a competitive and inclusive business environment amid a dire warning from the World Bank. The details from Sujin Kim.
The World Bank is calling for urgent action to cut red tape, modernize digital infrastructure, and streamline regulations to boost economic competitiveness, warning without swift reforms, the Philippines will lose vital investments. The latest Business Ready or Be Ready report reveals that the Philippines is struggling with crippling inefficiencies in company registration, property transfer, and insolvency processes, placing it behind its ASEAN neighbors.
The main issue that it needs to improve on is the effectiveness of public services. The second is the efficiency with which these public services are deployed to provide better compliance of regulations.
Loiza warns that regulatory barriers have turned the country into a sleeping giant.
We welcome the Business Ready report because for us in business, it is a wake-up call. It is a wake-up call for businessmen. It is a wake-up call for policymakers.
So we are in full support of ARTA and the World Bank in terms of doing business. My own opinion, my personal opinion is that we have a more efficient government and system. I mean, say that we address the issue of regulatory management, then the issue of corruption will also be addressed.
The World Bank stresses that the Philippines needs a 5% per capita GDP growth rate to transition into an advanced economy. However, in the last decade, the country has only achieved 3.4%, well below target.
The key to escape this middle income trap and to actually accelerate growth is the private sector. The private sector is really an economic giant. It provides already 90% of jobs, 70% of output, 75% of investment, and 80% of government revenue.
Head of the Anti-Red Tape Authority, Ernesto Perez, reinforces that the whole of government is working to tackle the issues raised by the World Bank.
The Philippine government is committed to fostering a competitive, inclusive, and sustainable business.
Perez is also calling on private sector leaders to report inefficiencies to help validate and drive reforms.
We need the private sector support because the private sector is the one experiencing this red tape. And you are the ones that can validate the claims of government agencies in the regulatory.
Sujin Kim, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
Bilyonaryo Alfred T., whose family runs Toyota Philippines, is optimistic about the future of the country's automotive industry. With projected car sales on the rise, he believes the growth will play a key role in strengthening the local manufacturing sector. This report from our mobility correspondent, G. Baroga.
Toyota Chairman Alfred T. forecasts an 8% growth in car sales this year, citing several factors such as higher election spending and expanding BPO earnings.
We are projecting a growth of over 500,000 units, 500,000 new cars, exactly 512,000 units, representing a growth of 8% for the whole industry in 2025.
T sees this as an opportunity to ramp up local production, helping the government in its push to strengthen the manufacturing sector.
I'm hoping with your support, we can harness the collective power of every automaker doing business in the country in realizing a more united automotive program to develop the Philippine auto industry into a major economic force and a manufacturing hub in support of the nation's long-term development plans.
In 2024, the industry reached a record-breaking 474,000 units sold, up 8% from 2023 and surpassing the previous record of 473,000 set in 2017.
Toyota and its luxury brand Lexus hit over 200,000 units sold last year, setting a new all-time high. T views this growth as a sign of increased mobility for Filipinos, which translates to more jobs, higher government revenue, greater investments, and a boost to export.
On the global stage, Toyota remains the largest automaker by sales in 2024 with 11 million units sold, thanks in part to its record-breaking hybrid sales of 4 million units, up 21% from the previous year.
Our main focus has been on hybrid electric vehicles, with our customers seamlessly adopting it over time, adapting to the hustle and bustle of many Filipinos. We continue to strengthen our multi-pathway approach and have showcased other powertrains, including the Corolla Cross H2 hydrogen concept.
The Philippines continues to be one of Toyota's top 10 markets worldwide, which has played a crucial role in creating opportunities for local employment and economic growth.
It helped us secure jobs for 69,000 Filipinos in 2024 and realize $1 billion of exports for the country and contribute 35 billion pesos to government revenues.
T also welcomes the expansion of the Philippine automotive market with new players entering, which opens up even more opportunities for local manufacturing. For BNC Mobility, G. Baroga.
Still to come, U.S. President Donald Trump orders the creation of a sovereign wealth fund. The details when we return. This is Newsfeed at noon. Back on Newsfeed at noon. Again, the headlines. President Bongbong Marcos appoints a new chief of the embattled state insurer, PhilHealth. Trade war on pause as U.S. President Donald Trump postpones tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Anthony Davis breaks his silence on the Lakers' shocking trade that sent him to the Dallas Mavericks. And Meteor Garden stars Jerry Yan and Ken Chu mourn the sudden death of Barbie Hsu. Several social media influencers snubbed today's TRICOM hearing on fake news, prompting House members to debate whether to pressure them to attend the next hearing. Let's get updates from Zandro Ochona joining us on the line. Zandro, what would be the next step by the three committees?
Several social media influencers are facing show cause orders by the House TRICOM despite issuing excuse letters for today's hearing. Manila Representative Benito Abante cited a certain social media influencer who allegedly used expletives on her online posts at the height of their Quadcom hearings last year. Abante pointed out the influencer appears to be brave online but is too afraid to appear personally during the House hearing. Abante also read some parts of her excuse letter, which he pointed out as too detached from the tone of her posts online. Because of this, the TRICOM reviewed the excuse letters sent by these social media influencers and issued show cause orders. Abang Lingkod Party List Representative Caraps Paduano even asked the TRICOM to consult House lawyers if they can file a disbarment case against Attorney Tiki Angeles, one of the invited social media influencers who snubbed today's hearing. Surigao del Norte 2nd District Representative Robert Ace Barbers, during his opening speech, said they seek to establish a regulatory framework for social media similar to how the Kapisanan ng mga Broadcaster ng Pilipinas or KBP regulates television and radio broadcasters, and how the National Union of Journalists of the Philippines or NUJP upholds ethical standards for print media. Barbers also said their goal is to develop a code of conduct for content creators, ensuring accountability and ethical responsibility in this rapidly evolving digital space. For now, several government agencies are discussing how they can get information or evidences from those who are spreading fake news and disinformation online. Mai?
Xandro, how about the issue on curtailing press freedom? Would it be dangerous for laws to be made which could be weaponized against journalists?
Well, one of the invited guests in today's hearing is a lead researcher, Dr. Jonathan Ong from the University of Massachusetts. And he suggested to also look into masterminds of fake news and disinformation, and not just on bots and low-level workers. Ong also said if laws will be crafted, they should be specific and transparent. But he also warned against implementers, top-down government implementers, could have more or could bring more harm than good, as these could lead to over-regulation. Mai.
Thank you, Xandro Ochona, reporting. Guard your hearts and wallets, especially this Valentine's season. That reminder from cybercrime authorities amid a rise in so-called love scams. Francis Falve reports.
Love is in the air with Valentine's Day fast approaching. But according to the Cybercrime Investigation and Coordinating Center or CICC, scams are also in the air.
Historically, nakikita natin, may spike ang love scam. So maraming versions yan, no? Meron yung may tatawag sa'yo, lonely hearts, o may makikipagkaibigan sa'yo online. Ang target niya is to get yung feelings mo, mapahulog ka nila, at the end, kukunan ka ng pera.
Aside from the lonely heart scam, other rackets include investment scams or cryptocurrency scams, where victims are enticed to invest, promising big returns. The Nigerian scam, where victims are told their money is tied up and scammer needs their help to release it. The notorious budol-budol scam, where scammers pretend to have an emergency and ask for financial help.
Ang issue dito is, hulihin mo na ang damdamin mo. Diba? Kasi habang lumalapit yung event na yan, alam nyo ang Pilipino, napaka-romantic eh. So, mataas ang probability, merong mabibiktima. And we want to preempt it para kumonte o wala nang mabiktima.
On social media platforms like Meta or Facebook, several forums and groups have been created where scam victims can share their experiences and warn others, like in this online conversation between a potential scammer and a Filipina. The scammer claimed to have problems with his company contract but promised to come to the Philippines to marry her once she sends 100,000 pounds. Fortunately, she did not fall for the trap.
Dadaanin nila na diligawan ka or talagang pahuhulugin damdamin mo. Kalimitan dito mga victims, mga babae, mga single na babae or widowed na babae, makakahanap ng AFAM, no? Or mga foreigner na guwaping, no? Or military in uniform. Yung pala mga peke. Peke yun.
Scam pala ito?
Scam lahat yan. And it's a global trend na nag-i-evolve palagi.
Recently, a lab scam made global headlines when a 53-year-old interior designer was tricked into believing she was in a relationship with Hollywood actor Brad Pitt. The scammer used artificial intelligence or AI, making the victim believe that the videos and pictures sent by her supposed boyfriend were legitimate. She was scammed for 1.5 years, and the painful part, her life savings of $850,000 were stolen. Brad Pitt's representative also warned the public against falling for these scams. With Valentine's Day approaching, the CICC has an important reminder.
Huwag ho kayo malungkot habang papalapit ang araw ng puso. Huwag ho kayo padadala sa matatanggap yung mga mensahe na nanliligaw sa inyo na complete stranger. Please iwasan nyo. Marami na hong naloko rito. Marami na hong kababaihan na middle age to older nagbibigay ng pera sa isang hindi nila nakikita na tao.
Ramos adds, people should stop scouring the internet for love because the real thing might just be right around the corner. Francis Polbe, Bilyonaryo News Channel.
U.S. President Donald Trump not yet done signing controversial executive orders. His latest EO will create a sovereign wealth fund within 90 days. Trump provided few details about how the fund would operate, but he has suggested that it could potentially be used to buy Chinese app TikTok.
So other countries have sovereign wealth funds, and they're much smaller countries, and they're not the United States. We have tremendous potential in this country, tremendous. You're seeing that, what's happened just in a short period of time. And as an example, TikTok, we're going to be doing something perhaps with TikTok, and perhaps not. If we make the right deal, we'll do it, otherwise we won't. But I have the right to do that, and we might put that in the sovereign wealth fund, whatever we make, or if we do a partnership with very wealthy people, a lot of options, but we could put that as an example in the fund, and we have a lot of other things that we could put in the fund. And
TikTok's fate has been up in the air in the U.S. since a law requiring its Chinese owner, ByteDance, to either sell it on national security grounds or face a ban took effect on January 19. But Trump has signed an EO delaying the law's enforcement by 75 days. Dozens of light installations set to illuminate the Danish capital of Copenhagen for the next 3 weeks. February is one of the darkest months of the year in Denmark, but during the Light Festival, locals and tourists in Copenhagen get to enjoy some much-needed light. Visitors can join walking or canal tours to see the installations, light treasure hunts, concerts, a silent disco, and a light run will also take place during the festival.
I felt happy, and they showed the color as happy, so it was pretty accurate in the emotions.
I feel joyful after that. It was really, it heightened my mood. It was really nice.
Well, I think it's a big opportunity to share the artwork international and in a city like Copenhagen.
We're taking another breather. Up next, K-pop superstar Jisoo unveils the track list for her upcoming debut solo mini album. The details after the break. Stay with us. You're back at Newsfeed at noon. Anthony Davis breaking his silence on the Los Angeles Lakers' shocking trade that sent him to the Dallas Mavericks. After 6 incredible seasons, Davis officially bid farewell to LA in a heartfelt Instagram post. He says he is grateful to the city where his first ring came from. AD also addressing his teammates, saying their friendships go beyond a locker room and a jersey. He adds, LA will always have a special place in his heart. He ended his post saying, quote, Dallas, here we come. Meanwhile, the post-Luka Doncic era in Dallas is off to a rough start. In a press conference, Mavericks head coach Jason Kidd admitted it will take time for them to adjust without Doncic, who has been a big part of the franchise for the past 6 years. The statement came after Dallas suffered a 43-point beatdown against the Cleveland Cavaliers, its first game since trading the Slovenian superstar to the Lakers. U.S. President Donald Trump hosts the Florida Panthers at the White House. Trump was presented with a hockey stick and a personalized team jersey featuring his name and the number 47 on the back. This marks the first White House visit by a sports team under the new Trump administration. The Florida Panthers secured their first ever Stanley Cup last June, defeating the Edmonton Oilers in a 4-3 series. Meteor Garden stars and fans are mourning the sudden death of Barbie Hsu, who famously played the lead role of Sunshine in the hit series. Her on-screen love interest, Jerry Yan, who starred as Dao Ming-soo, paid a heartfelt tribute to Hsu on the social media platform Weibo. He says he is thankful for meeting her and that from now on, there will be no troubles and the years for her will be peaceful. Meanwhile, fellow F4 member Ken Chu reposted this throwback photo of them on Instagram. Hsu died from flu-triggered pneumonia. She was 48. Academy Award-winning actor Ke Huy Quan cementing his legacy in Hollywood. Literally, Quan had his hands and footprints immortalized outside the legendary TLC Chinese Theater in Los Angeles. It comes days before the release of the film Love Hurts, his first major leading role.
And I would always get here, really early before the showtime. And I would walk around and look at all the different names, different people with the hands and footprint, and I would actually put my hand over theirs. Just feeling, what does it feel like to have your hand and footprint so permanently imprinted at this iconic theater, historic theater.
Quan started his film career in the 80s as a young actor in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom and The Goonies. In 2023, he won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor for his role in Everything Everywhere All at Once. And before we go, Blackpink's Jisoo unveils the track list for her upcoming debut solo mini-album, Amortage. The record includes the tracks Earthquake, Your Love, Tears, and Hugs and Kisses. Jisoo describes these as, quote, 4 fragments of love. The album will be released on Valentine's Day, February 14. More good news for Filipino blinks. Jisoo's agency just announced the K-pop singer will be coming to Manila for a fan meet. Full details have yet to be announced. And those are the news this hour. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Keep it here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel. Good afternoon.